we're going to the call to public. And before we start, I'm going to say a couple of things. The call to public is for things that are in our purview, but we have been very, very lenient with that over the years. And I personally think everybody has the right to address their government. I said it 13 years ago when we put it in, and I mean it today, but somehow in the last few years, it has really gotten out of control with the behavior and the words. So, first of all, I've asked before, Mr. Esplin, about political signs at our meetings. My problem is if we allow one, we have to allow everybody. And when does it stop? Excuse me. Excuse me. You will be asked to leave if you blurt out one more time, Mr. McClure.
What's the question?
The question is political signs at our meeting.
Well, we don't allow any campaigning within the building.
And that includes this auditorium.
Absolutely, this is part of the building.
So thank you very much. So I'm not going to allow political signs, and I'm also not going to allow profanity. We have really devolved. You know, we talk about our students and our children and how badly behaved they are, and look at us. You know, what a role model. So this is what's going to happen. No political signs, and if you use profanity, I'm going to have your mic cut off. If you don't like it, Mr. McClure, you can call the Attorney General's office. I'm going to give you her phone number. It's 602-542-5025. She's itching for a reason to arrest me. So go ahead. But I'm not going to put up with this sort of overall bad behavior anymore. First up, Butch Merriweather. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe the prohibition on campaigning applies to county employees and not to the public. I believe that I can, as a member of the public, I can stand on the front of the building and campaign all I want because it's the public square.
In the past, I know this when I was running, we were told that we could not have political signs.
If I may respond.
Yes, please.
So whenever you're looking at analysis for constitutional questions of where you can do certain things, there's a forum analysis you have to do. And there's different types of forums, and based on what type of forum will dictate what kind of activities can be allowed and what kind of activities the government can say we can restrict it. For example, the traditional public forum is the park. At the park, the government has very, very limited ability to restrict things because that's a traditional public forum where somebody will go to the park and they'll do protesting or they'll do, all kinds of political stuff and things because that's the traditional public forum. The next one is the limited public forum. And what we have here in this building, in many respects, is a limited public forum where we can step in and we can do certain things because there's a different standard that we have because it's a limited public forum. So in a limited public forum, we can say, hey, we're not going to allow campaigning in here because we are using it for other purposes. This is used for a Board of Supervisor meeting to conduct a meeting. Then there's the third one where there is no public forum. For example, my office, your office. You can say, no, the public does not have a right to come into our offices. We can restrict that. Even though it's a public building, the taxpayers pay for it, but that's completely restricted where employees are working and they can say, okay, this is a basis where we can restrict where activities will take place. So here in this building, this is a limited public forum where we can restrict and say, hey, we are not going to allow politicking to happen because we're doing a business meeting and so on. So we can't allow that. It's not the message. We're not discriminating against anybody. We're saying, hey, in this hearing, in this meeting, we're having a limited public forum, and here's the purpose for which we're having that public forum.
And the discretion is with the chairman.
Well, certainly the chairman has that discretion whether to allow it or not. That's correct.
Right. So for now, if you get an Attorney General's opinion that I must let you electioneer during our meeting, I will apologize and I will allow you. But for now, no electioneering.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just have one question for the attorney, if I could. I don't have any problem with people exercising their political rights outside. I mean, I think you see that pretty regularly across our country at public buildings. My only question to you, and it's, you have somebody that comes into a public meeting and it's being publicly broadcast on television and things like this, and they flash a sign, does that not become almost like a political commercial? And is that something that where there's the line where, you know, the county is offering basically free advertising for this or that? You know what I'm talking about?
I understand the question. It's a very valid question. Where I get into concerns, and I want to make sure that we're clear, is that we do not restrict a person's speech. And so when somebody says something and says, I want this or that, I recommend that you don't stop that. Just let them have that speech. But there is a point where somebody may go over the line where they may want to show up signs and do politicking, where I can say, hey, this is not the purpose of this meeting, and we can restrict that. And so it's just a fine line of determining whether that is or not. We can restrict based on time, manner, and place. I have to look at the exact language that we're allowed to restrict on a limited public forum. But it's restricted to the purpose for which this meeting is for. I do not recommend that you cut off people. Let them have their speech. Have that speech take place, and we move on to the next item.
Even the profanity part that I talked about?
Absolutely. I understand no profanity.
Right. And people have been able to talk for years. We have never stopped people from saying what they wanted to say. I'm only talking about profanity. That's all. And if you get me Attorney General's opinion that I have to do that, because from everything I've learned over the years I've been here, there is no electioneering in the building, and we can't seem to get a definitive answer from our own attorney. So for now, that's going to be my rule.
Madam Chairman?
Madam Chair?
I'm going to challenge the authority of the chairman and request a roll call vote.
Okay. And for which one? Both of them? The profanity and the signs?
The signs.
The signs. So the profanity is okay to limit?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Seems I recall that they set aside the out there in front for political signs and activism stuff. It's not inside the boardroom, so I would question the county attorney on that. I'm pretty sure that's the county rule.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
To sort of finish my question from Attorney Esplin, I think you kind of hit it. I'm not intimately familiar with the ins and outs of the law, and I think that I look, as far as one supervisor, look to you for definitive legal opinions about what is allowed and what is not allowed, and sometimes you kind of are wishy-washy. I'm sorry. And that doesn't help me as a non-attorney. I'm looking for you to tell me legal guidance about what is allowed in your opinion and what is not allowed in your opinion, and I'm going to abide by that because you're my attorney. I still am a little confused about the difference. Again, to Supervisor Johnson's point, I don't think that there's just anything wrong with people campaigning or doing whatever they do outside public forum. But I still have a question as far as people flashing signs during a publicly televised meeting, and does that constitute giving a free contribution to a campaign or something like that? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but that seems to be a dividing line to me because there's a commercial component involved.
I don't see it as commercial, and I see it as somebody expressing their viewpoint.
Okay, thank you.
At some point, there can be a line, and it is hard to define, but at some point, somebody may say, hey, that's campaigning, and you can step in and say, hey, look, let's get back to what the purpose of this meeting is for. And so it's tough to find that line sometimes.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We've had this discussion. Everybody knows how we feel. I'm asking for a little discretion from people who come up here. So I'm going to withdraw that, but I'm still going to implement the profanity part. Okay, because I think that is universal. That is unacceptable in a forum like this. I'm sorry you've had to stand there so long, Mr. Merriweather. So, did you make a motion, or you were going to?
Good.
All right. So now that I've withdrawn my thing,
It's not an issue.
that's right. Okay. Greg Beffert.
Supervisors, for the record, Greg Beffert. I'm going to have to put the revisionist Zionist education on hold for now because we're in a political year here. And I started in October by sending a letter to these people, letting them know that I was going to come out here and expose how government works. I was going to expose how some of you were complicit in varying degrees during COVID-19. Some of you were collectively complicit with the bureaucracy. The reason he's confused about the Constitution is that's not his forte. The Constitution wasn't his forte. His job was to protect the interest of this body right here, not the interest of the people. Let's put that on the table. And he failed at protecting our interests and our Constitution. That's why we went through what we went through during COVID-19, because that was his job. Protect the county and the county's interests, not ours. So let me tell you how it works here. Politicians, just like people that, as I interviewed as a detective, use all kinds of tactics to deflect, divert, minimize their involvement in it. And then ultimately, when they do confess to what they did, because you catch them in the lies and you show the evidence, then they'll, again, minimize. Well, I did it because I killed this person. I went in the convenience store and killed him because I needed money. My kids were starving. So it's no different with politics. And what we observed 2 weeks ago was political grandstanding. You talk about political speech, the first thing you tried to do was shut down speech. There is no such thing as political speech. It's a made-up term. Or hate speech. Or anti-Semitic speech. Speech is speech. Okay? Profanity. You know? So what you guys did last time was Supervisor Gould brought up the point that don't paint a broad brush over everybody here. There's levels of complicitness. And I said that from the very beginning. Some of you were more complicit than others, and Supervisor Gould was one of them. I watched his behavior throughout this thing, and he was consistent. This isn't an endorsement, because he has issues too that I'm going to address later. But the two law enforcement professionals knew damn well that there was no legal basis, that they were violating 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, the case that I brought to the criminal side of the county attorney's office, and who accepted it until he got it up the chain of command and said, you're going to make us complicit here. We're going to be liable. Time out. I'll be back to address that later. But he called it a plandemic. He acknowledged that the lies have come out. They've unfolded now. She calls it a pandemic. He tried to minimize his role. Yeah, I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for it. But I had to spend the money. Tried to give it back. I get that. I'll be back.
Thank you very much.